Hello and welcome to session 1. Now in this video, we're going to be discussing the trend and direction in information marketing. Now the market for information, or those who are selling information, whether it's in products or services, is starting to mature. We are no longer just selling information or taking facts and putting them in people's heads. We are now in the business of selling solutions, and that's even if you have a brick and mortar business that you are using information in order to supplement what it is that you sell. Now, in some cases, we are working on the problems and goals that already exist. In some cases, we are working on the problems and goals that don't exist that people have. What we need to do is to reach segments of people that we resonate with and give them the highest value possible as information marketers or people that market information in our business. And of course, as is the case in anything in business, that means we can't be everything to everybody. So that if you see someone and they are doing engagement on Facebook, that may or may not mean that you need to do it for your business. You might see someone that's doing engagement on webinars. That may or may not mean that you need to do engagement on webinars. You see engagement on YouTube and video, and you might feel as if that's something that you need to do. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Or you might see these days engagement in live workshops. Is that something that you need to do? And that's something that you need to question before you just jump in. Now, business may or may not work if we think about it traditionally. In other words, information marketing has traditionally been to get an email list of people, to churn it and burn it. In other words, just to continue to send lots of affiliate offers or lots of things to sell all the time, and then replace those people when they get tired of that kind of interaction through email. Now, if you don't do that, though, then what's the alternative? What should you be doing, or what should you be projecting to a list of people that you have that you're marketing to? Now, when we think about this, now we can't be Amazon and have everything in the world and sell everything to everyone, then we need another strategy. Here's the thing. Anyone that is creative, and that's someone who creates and markets solutions from their brain, only needs 1,000 true fans or customers to make a decent living. This is what's considered to be, or for the purposes of this course, a creative person, at least according to Kevin Kelly. But what is a true fan in Kelly's definition? And what does this have to do with rebrandable content and marketing information? Now, the kind of person that is a true fan is a person that would buy the high-res version, or the higher priced, or the higher level version of your products and services, even though they may already own the regular or the low-res version. These are the kind of people that have a Google alert set up for your name or your company or the things that you are saying and doing. They are tracking you to find out what it is that you're doing so that they can be first to get it. These are the kind of people that watch your social media updates on purpose. They have programmed you into what it is that they do. Maybe they're bookmarking sites like Amazon and eBay for your particular books so that when they come available, they'll get them. These are people that come to your events, online or offline. If you're going to be speaking, if you're going to be presenting, these are the people that find out about it and they attend. In other words, these are the kind of people that cannot wait until you issue your next product or your next work for them to be able to purchase. Now, let's say that a true fan or a true customer spends $100 a year on your work. Then theoretically, you'd only need 1,000 of them to earn $100,000. This is the kind of person that would buy from you, not always because it's rational. They buy from you because they like what you offer and they want it. So think about it in this way. There are probably some people that are irrational about sports teams or sports and entertainment in their being a fan. This is the same concept when it comes to what it is you offer. You probably have people who are irrational about what it is that you offer. Another way to think about it is that not everyone buys or eats the food that is good for them. People tend to like to buy the food that they like or that makes them feel good. There's not always ration involved in a purchasing process, but when people buy and they buy enthusiastically, they tend to buy the things that they want. So the question is going to be, how do you attract your fans? Can you use PLR or rebrandable content anyway? And the answer to that question is going to be yes. But you and I must recreate not just content, but we must create solutions and goals that your fans love. That is the essence of finding 1,000 true fans. Creating solutions and goals that our fans actually love. Now, the goal in business is not just to make sales. It is to satisfy the fans as we have just defined them. That means that we're going to be in a constant state of getting feedback from people who are prospects and people who are customers. That means then that we are going to be producing consistently what they like. It also means we're going to be giving generously to those that like what we do. Now, the key is not to confuse the vehicle with the destination. Now, what do we mean by that? For example, live streaming video, you've probably seen it, Periscope or Facebook Live. That's a vehicle to get your message out. The destination ultimately is to find and to satisfy a true fan. Video, live or static, is just going to be a vehicle in order to get your fans to stick and to connect with them. The question is going to be, is there something out there that works better for you? And if it is, you and I need to use it if that's what we're going to use in order to reach our fans. That means then that you may or may not have to do, for example, Periscope, just because, quote, everyone is doing it. You will do it if it makes life easier for your fans. So, solo businesses, artists, bloggers, and other creative entrepreneurs are attaining long-term success by finding those true fans and by catering to them and making sure they have what it is they want to sustain a viable living that allows them to earn and yet have time to refresh and to recharge and have fun in their business. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in the next video. Now, go to Session 1, Exercise 1. Welcome to Session 2. Now, we are branding to find our true customers. And we want to start from this idea. The industry of information marketing can be said to be as much of a trade as it is a profession. And that means that the knowledge needed to be successful can be learned from a combination of experience and understanding. And that means then that it doesn't necessarily require any advanced degrees or college education or graduate degrees or anything like that. Now, this insight on information marketing being a trade is helpful in several ways. In that, marketers can begin to look at their development much like anyone else in the traditional physical trades, like being a plumber or carpenter or contractor. Now, for a person to be successful in their trade, let's take plumbing and carpentry, for example, they need to have certain tools. They need to have certain training. They need to have certain preparation. And we need to have that same level of discipline, tools, training, and preparation in order to generate an income from information marketing, just as traditional tradespersons do. Now, how does a person then take all of this, tools, training, and preparation, and turn it into a sustainable income? Just because you get all those things doesn't mean that it necessarily means that you will be able to generate an income from them. So to answer that question, we need to think through a framework. And the framework has 4 parts. There's the means to getting it, there's the method to getting it, there's the material needed to get it, and then there's the meaning of it. So how do we take tools, training, and preparation and turn it into a sustainable income? Let's think through the framework. The means is really the theme of this entire course, which is 1,000 true customers or fans. Now, this framework comes from an article written by author and futurist Kevin Kelly, who was the founding editor of Wired magazine. And he starts by saying that when somebody has decided on a specific niche or a way that they create value, they are considered to be creative. In other words, they create something out of their brain in order to sell it to the marketplace. Now that person, instead of trying to take what they created in their brain to fulfill the needs of everyone or millions of people, According to Kelly, their focus should be on looking to find their 1,000 true fans. And in this case, a true fan is defined by Kelly as someone who will buy $100 in products or services in a calendar year from that marketer and or artist. So to think further about this, the means then breaks down into $9 per month per buyer. The marketer then directs activities like list building toward the true fans and not just trying to get a list to have big numbers. Writing emails or doing social media is done for the fans and not necessarily for the masses. So let's talk then about the method. We defined the means, 1,000 true fans. So what's the method then of turning tools, training, and preparation into sustainable income now that we're working through a framework of 1,000 true fans? Well, then a person has to define a specific market in order to work in and to pick a sub-niche. So in other words, narrowing down the focus to find a marketplace where they can be unique and to be able to deliver something specific. To determine that market, what does that mean? Who is it that they're selling to? Where are they? Where do they hang out, online or offline? And what do they, those people in that marketplace, say their problems are? Then that person has to diagnose that market. In other words, they've got to find out, well, what solutions does that group of people know they already need? What are the solutions they know they need? And then what are the solutions that they don't know they need? Then they've got to differentiate in that market. In other words, define a unique selling proposition or define that area that they are able to deliver something that no one else is able to deliver, but that is desired by that marketplace. Then they've got to deal in the marketplace and develop a product line, a series of things that a person can purchase in order to fulfill their goals or in order to attack their problems, and something that, again, they can uniquely deliver to those folks who are looking for solutions to their problems and looking for ways to accomplish their goals. And then they've got to deliver value in the marketplace. And they do that through some kind of platform, something like blogging or something like podcasting or something like video logging or a video channel or something where they are creating value on a regular basis and giving it away to the people that really want and desire those solutions and that information. So they've got a database then intelligently. They've got to find the people that are going to be willing to read emails. They're going to have to be willing to find the people who are listening to their message and then find out what ideas are sticking to the people that are actually doing the reading, actually doing the listening to the platform. And then lastly, got to develop authority in the marketplace. So that's the method. That's the method that one goes about when they're seeking to establish the brand. In other words, the means is finding the 1,000 true fans. The method then becomes doing these 8 things successfully. The method then becomes doing these 8 things successfully. So what is the material? What do you use in order to do these things like podcasting and developing products and generating content? What are they? Well, obviously, you can do this with any kind of content or product creation there is. In other words, you find out what the need is and you create products and you create content and you do what is necessary to satisfy the needs and desires of the people who are coming to you on a regular basis, who are in your database. Now, however, here's what's important. You need to have fresh, focused content and ideas on a consistent basis. And that is the challenge in today's industry, is that we always need to have fresh content in multiple venues, and we need to be doing that on a regular basis and staying on the cutting edge. And since in this case, we're not denying it, but we're not necessarily using a method of trying to find search traffic. We can then use high quality, reliable PLR as our source and raw material for everything that we do. In other words, we want to create a product. We can use PLR to do that. We want to create content. We can use PLR to do that. We want to create authority. We can use PLR to do that. So the materials that we need, we can gather from PLR in order to execute the method, in order to work through the means. Now, in each one of those D's that we talked about in the method, you will see the value of using PLR, even if you choose not to use it, even if you choose to create it all from scratch Every step of each one of the D's in the method really can benefit from the use of PLR. Each one of the D's that we talked about in the method, we can find value in using PLR in order to execute it, even if we choose not to and we choose to create everything from scratch. So finally, how do we work through the meaning? How does the meaning help us to figure out how to turn all of the tools, the training and preparation into a sustainable income? We first start with goal setting. This is how we take this information and turn it into something tangible that we can use in order to focus on. And this is where we decide and set on a specific goal. In other words, something that looks like this: 1,000 members paying you $17 monthly. It gives us clarity in terms of what all this creativity is going to mean, and then who do you want those 1,000 people to be? It does matter. It is very important to figure out who we want to come through the door. Who do we want to work with? Who do we want to invest the time in? Who do we want to see in our marketing funnel? And if you and I do not detail this, we will not get what we want. We will get the first people in the door that we want into our business, and that will not necessarily contribute to a long-term sustainable income where we are going to have the motivation and the desire to produce on an everyday basis. How can we get our ideas and concepts to stick without having to change what we're good at? We have to figure that out at this stage. Look, we ultimately want to be our best self, and that's why determining what all of this means in terms of the customers that we actually want, the people that we actually want to see getting the results, people that we want to see coming through our marketing funnel, defining what that looks like will give us the most energy that will allow us to deliver more value that we're being paid for, so that when someone has to give you the $9 monthly, it will be a no-brainer to them because of the value that you're delivering, because you have such passion and you have such competence in terms of delivering your creative trade. Okay, so with that, please now look at the Session 2 exercise. Welcome to Session 3. Now in this video, we're going to be discussing building the infrastructure to get and maintain the 1,000 true customers or fans. Now, what we really need is to find a unique space in the market, providing something that we know that people are already desiring and they've already expressed an interest, or at least that we have an intuition that they want. And we ultimately want to be the only one that they can come to in order to get that need fulfilled. We want to create things that aren't going to be easy for other people to reproduce. So in other words, yes, we want to be able to produce information. In some ways, PDFs, MP3s, MP4s, they can all be reproduced. But the information that we bring to the market, we want to be able to do it in such a way that it would be entirely difficult for someone to come up with the same kind of concepts and to deliver it in the way that we deliver it. We want people that cannot wait for us to produce our next work. Now, some marketers in any market would call this our USP, which is also called a unique selling proposition. A unique selling proposition is a way of being able to do business so that it is unique to us. We are the only ones that can produce it. People have to come to us to get it. And the differentiation is we don't become a commodity. So in other words, we're just not some other information producer in a particular niche, that we are the only ones that can produce it. And what that means ultimately is that we don't have to compete on the basis of price. When we become a commodity and we're just like everyone else, then our price needs to be right around the same place that everybody else's is. But when we produce something entirely different, we are then able to compete on a totally different level because we're providing a different level of value. Ultimately, that's how we're competing. We're competing on how valuable our information, our solutions are to the people that are looking. And as an information marketer, we want to be able to test different solutions with the marketplace so that we can find out what exactly people are going to be looking for. Now, what's only partially true about information marketing? Now, there is a step-by-step system to sustain profits that everyone can follow. That's only partially true. Although that's commonly touted, that's commonly said, that's commonly believed, that there is a system that we can give people and that everyone's going to be able to grab this system and then they're going to be able to sustain it in order to get success. Now that's why, as information marketers, sometimes we'll follow the steps that we may expect to see that success. In other words, we'll install our blog, but we don't see the traffic right away, even though we expect it. We might create an information product and we expect to see sales, but we don't necessarily see it right away. We might set up our paid advertising campaign. We expect to see leads coming in, but they don't automatically opt in. We create the video and then we expect engagement. We expect people to be interacting with us, but it doesn't necessarily happen. The fact of the matter is that nothing automatically happens just because we create the information and we put it out there, so to speak. The old assumption in information market is we do an action and then based on what has happened in the past, things will automatically happen. That is an old assumption. So the question now is that if it's changed, if that's the old assumption, what is the variable that controls whether or not these kinds of efforts are going to be successful? What is the new assumption? The question is always going to be, what do we have that others do not have? It comes back to our level of uniqueness in the marketplace. Now, when we start thinking about this, what we have as a resource, what we can bring to the table, what we have that others don't have, we have to think outside of our social media following. You can't look at your social media following and think, I must not have something that people are interested in. There are other ways to think about your resources. For example, you probably have had previous jobs and expertise, things that you can do, things that you've done in the past that you were very good at, things that you understand well, that maybe you didn't factor into what you're doing right now. You have probably had some level of formal and informal education experience that may be able to be brought to the table in terms of what you're doing. Maybe it isn't. But the fact of the matter is you probably have formal and informal education that you may have discounted in terms of where you can provide value. You have family in some cases that are in positions and levels of authority that can do things for you and they're willing to do things for you. You might be part of social groups, online or offline. And again, and by social groups, here are some examples. By no means is this list comprehensive, but it's the kind of thing we're talking about. For example, an alumni society. Some of you may belong to a religious organization or a church of some kind. You also have things in your local area, in your immediate city, in your immediate state, your immediate region that you have access to that other people do not have access to. And you have friends and associates. Again, they're going to be in places and they're going to be able to do things for you that others are not going to be able to do in your particular niche or marketplace. So the question is always going to be, when we think about that broad list, what can we bring to our USP? And sometimes there's some things that we do without even knowing it. So for example, some information marketers, before they were successful salespeople. So they inject it into what they're doing without even knowing that they're doing it. They're bringing their sales experience into what they do. Some information marketers were successful teachers or instructors. They are bringing that experience into what they do without even knowing it, without even knowing that that is part of what they do well. That is part of their actual success. You have things that you do almost without thinking about it that you bring to your USP, that you bring to the table. Sometimes there are things that you don't do without knowing it. You don't typically inject who's in your social group, although you probably bring that to what it is you're doing. Sometimes you might not bring people who are in your local area as experts. You could be looking internationally when there's someone right in your backyard. Sometimes we don't do certain things, even though we know we have it. We are always going to be at our best when we find our existing resources, unique resources, and use them to put inside of our own USP. Little things in the USP are going to matter to certain people, indeed your true fans. As explained in The Tipping Point in Malcolm Gladwell, that there are little things can cause epidemics. Little things can cause things to tip. Little things can cause people to want to flock to you in large numbers And many times those things can be incidental. So you want to make sure you're bringing everything that you have to the table because you don't necessarily know what's going to strike an interest with certain people. And these little things can often be enough to attract your true fans. And again, we start talking about the people that are going to be willing to spend with you over and over again over the course of years. We want to be able to bring those special things that allow them to connect with us. And these little things can be enough to connect to those true fans. And it's really easy to do in information marketing. So what we've got to do is we've got to make the connection. What is it that people really want? We have to be able to answer the question. What do we have available that we can use in order to solve some of these problems, in order to help people to solve their goal in our niche? Do we have contacts? Do we have relationships that we can somehow inject into what we're doing? Do we have more time than other people? When we know this and we start factoring these things in, we can start creating content. We can start creating content. We can start creating information in a way that helps us to leverage our time. We don't want to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in order to do this. We want to create the kind of products that create so much value that we can then step back, recharge, and refresh based on the value that we're charging for, the value that you're pricing at. And this is the place where we can find the right rebrandable content or PLR to use. We want to be able to get information that we can reuse in order to inject into what it is we're doing so that we will be able, again, leverage our time in putting these products and putting this content together. We ultimately want to create something with rebrandable content or PLR that can only be purchased from us. And what we want to do with that creation, we want to connect to the people who want more and more of it. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in the next video. Now, head over to exercise number 3. Hello and welcome to session 4. Now in session 4, we are building a foundation in our online business to reach 1,000 fans or buyers that will pay us $100 a year minimum. This again is based on the article by Kevin Kelly at kk.org, and hopefully you have already read the article. What you'll notice is that this concept actually moves in lockstep with the 80-20 rule, meaning that 20% of your customers could account for 80% of your revenue, and thus you want to focus on those customers. We're going to be using and leveraging resell rights and PLR content to help us to attain this, to leverage our time in creating products and content and all of the other extras that your 1,000 true fans will be getting over time. Now we are going to be putting assets in place to go beyond regular list building and again to reach our 1,000 true fans and then to satisfy their needs and desires. Now when the challenge is done, we'll have the right infrastructure together in our online business. Now the key is that you should have already decided on a general direction of your business or a general niche. For example, relationships or make money online or health or something of that nature. You should have decided on a broad niche. Because now what we're going to start doing is building our foundation by addressing the key problems in our niche or sub-niche. Let's talk about deciding on your market or sub-niche. Now, when you decide on how deep inside of your market you're going to go, and let's say that you have decided to go into the health niche, you want to find out when you decide on the sub-niche or subtopic, is there room in that niche for you to sell something unique? Is there a new angle for you to be able to reach customers where they have been asking for a solution but none is available? If you can't find necessarily a new angle, is there someone in the niche that you can partner with? Is there someone who wants to do more of what they're doing, but they don't have the resources? Or maybe they are one person and they need a partner in order to reach all of the customers in their particular niche. Now, whether or not you decide to do something unique or partner with someone, you need to decide whether or not there's going to be enough income in the market in order to sustain the model. Remember, we want to find those buyers who are willing to spend at least $9 monthly with us. That comes to about $100 annually per buyer. And of course, we're going to build our foundation by drawing 1,000 of them, or 1,000 of those customers, into our marketing funnel. Is there already a market for information? Is there a forum? Is there a place inside of one of the social networks? Is there a local market? Is there some venue where you can test the market for this information, where you are going to be able to find out if there's going to be enough money in the market to sustain you? Most importantly, is there a series of pressing problems for you to solve? And that is really going to determine whether or not you are going to be able to come into the market and then really build out your foundation. And then, of course, you want to be able to figure out if these are going to be problems that are going to reoccur. Are these problems that people have over and over again? New people have these problems, or better yet, people have the problems and then they have them again, because if they have them again, they're going to be seeking you again for more information, or even be willing to stay with you in a continuity basis if they're seeking ongoing help. So as you decide to test out solutions in the marketplace, you decide to test out whether or not there's a market for the kind of solutions you're going to address the problem. So one of the first things you're going to do is you're going to outline the steps that really help the individual who's going to be buying your information product to solve their problem. So a general outline, step by step. Typically, you want to divide that outline into 10 steps, if you can outline it into more, but you want to have a sense that there are going to be at least 10 steps to follow for the individual to be able to follow in order to address the problem. You want to address the worst possible issue. So decide on the worst issue that's available. Find out which one is pressing, that's causing people the most angst. Then you want to do what's called buying the basics. You start by looking for written PLR content. You start by looking for content that will help you not only to give background on the problem, and then to outline some of the solution. Of course, you're going to be able to fill it in with your expertise. You can go and look for PLR video, which provides even more background and more connection. Now, when you buy a PLR video, of course, what you can do is you can actually redo that video in your own voice or have it redone, but you were actually buying the research in this point. You were buying the actual discussion about the solution. Or you can buy PLR audio and work with it in the very same way. You buy the solution and you start to reformulate it into your own voice. Now, you may already have enough information that already addresses the problem. So you certainly want to inventory your own PLR or rebrandable content or master resale rights content to determine whether or not you have the available content to formulate a solution, to formulate something that you are going to be able to give to a customer that's experienced a problem, again, so that you can test to see which solution is going to take hold. Then, once you have your information in place, you have your steps, outline the entire solution, and then start to put the parts together based on your PLR, and then figure out what you are going to have to fill in, and fill it in. Design a solution that's going to address the problem as you see it based on this initial inspection of the market. Then very quickly bundle up the solution. And what this is going to become eventually is going to be your signature document. You are going to continue to work with this one document as you determine what your market is going to be, as you determine what your sub-niche is going to be, as you determine what it is you are going to focus on. This is going to be where you define your place in the market and you inject your USP. So as you figure out what the steps should be, this is going to be the one thing that you're going to refer back to over and over again, your philosophy in the marketplace, whatever it is that you are doing. Actually should represent your USP. It should speak highly of the way that you view attacking this problem. And again, this is going to be important in this initial step because you want to know what is going to be your unique position in the mind of your potential prospect. What do you want it to be? And then at this point, don't be afraid to take a stand. You are going to turn off some people, and you're going to attract some people. Some people are going to gravitate to your message, and some people are going to turn away from your message, which is going to be fine because remember, we're not looking for an abundance of people. We're looking to generate and find our 1,000 true fans. This is a step in which you can find out what you are the only at. In other words, are you the only person that says a certain phrase? Are you the only person that can prescribe a certain solution? Are you the only one with a specific set of knowledge? And then you've got to then start to figure out what you are going to actually take to the marketplace. You're going to be getting feedback from the market because we're just determining right now where we're going to fit into the niche. We're trying to figure out where the problems are, what the sub niche is, and then how we are going to address the problem. And the best way to address the problem is to actually create something and place it in the market. Now again, when you do this, you want to make sure that this product is packaged in the form that your target market wants, based on your inspection. Does the target market tend to like video? Then that's part of what should be inside of your package. Do they tend to buy video plus PDFs? Again, you should have an idea of what the market is buying, and you want to then make sure that you have something at least similar, and then you want to add to it. Do they have audio and video? So again, you're trying to determine what it is that's the minimum level, and then you want to add something unique that's going to give your customer what they actually want. Now, this process is going to put us in the marketplace, and we're going to continue to refine it. We're going to continue to do this until we determine exactly where our sub niche is. And we're going to do this by launching real products, having them tested, getting feedback, bundling it up, and then redoing it based on the feedback that we're getting. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. And now head over to the exercise in session 4. Welcome to session 5. Now in this video, we want to recall that what we're doing in this series is we are building a foundation in our online business, or in the online portion of our business, or information marketing portion of our business, to reach 1,000 fans or buyers that will pay us $100 per year minimum. This is based on the article by Kevin Kelly at kk.org. And if you haven't read it, you should take a look at the article. Again, this article and this concept moves in lockstep with the 80-20 rule, which means that we are going to be working on 20% of our customers, typically, that will generate 80% of our revenue. And part of the process is we're going to be using and leveraging resale rights and PLR content in order to help us to attain this level of generating products as well as content. And we're going to be putting these assets in place to go beyond typical list building. And once the challenge is over, we will have the right infrastructure in our online business. Now, you should have designed your signature opt-in piece along with solving a major problem in the niche. And of course, you will continue that process until you find the right market or sub-niche. Now, in this session, we're going to be talking about getting clear on what your potential customers might want and what you're going to do with the data that you collected in session 4. So let's talk about a few special considerations and some things to think about. Now, it's necessary to say before we get started in this session, the strategy of 1,000 True Fans does not change the need for you to create the products that you're already creating. So if you're already in the marketplace and you are already generating income and you're already creating products, you need to continue this process, because what we're doing right now is we are finding out what the market really wants. We are also digging deep to try to find the customers that are going to be loyal to us to spend $100 per calendar year. This does not change the need for us to continue generating leads. We should be constantly in the process of generating leads. And this does not change the need for us to network with joint venture partners and affiliates. If you are already in that process, you should continue doing so, again, until you discover the right sub-niche. What the process does is give context to the business and what you're actually trying to accomplish. For example, as you are doing some of these activities, you will start to consider what the goal of each activity is. For example, will your goal be to do product launches for cash? In other words, are you trying to generate cash flow with the product launch, and that's your primary motivation? Or, in some cases, are you doing product launches so that you can sift through different buyers in order to find those buyers that are going to continue to be loyal to you? Are you going to build out a product line to put in front of them so that they will become one of your 1,000 True Fans? Are you going to be doing product launches for cash as well as long-term customers? So everything is really dictated by what you were trying to accomplish with your activities. Now let's talk about what you are going to actually do with the data. The data you're getting that we talked about in session 4 is going to help us to test ideas with new products. The data will also help us to figure out what we should be doing in things like webinars and training and podcasts and platform information. The data we're collecting, where we're finding out what people are really interested in spending money on, will help us to figure out which experts we should be talking to. That data will also help us to figure out trends in the market. Now, every new offer is actually going to be a test to find out what the market really wants, and then trying to move people into becoming true fans. The data will ultimately help us to figure out how we may want to design a part of our marketing funnel. Now, a funnel is what the customer buys at the point of sale. A funnel is also what the customer buys over the lifetime with you. So you want to consider those two ways of thinking about sales funnels. Yes, they can be the traditional one-time offer when a customer buys something from you, but a funnel can also be what the customer buys in future years or in future months or whatever a future period is. What is the customer going to buy with you over time, and can that be mapped out? And here's the question that you'll want to consider and how you're going to make decisions based on the data that you're getting about the products you're selling. Do you have enough products and subjects planned and designed right now for someone to spend $100 a year with you? And you want to start thinking about that, because when you find the right sub-niche, you will want to start designing out funnels so that a person can buy more from you at a particular point in time, as well as more from you over time. Now, are those products logically spaced? When will the customer see those additional offers? Are they going to see them all at the point of sale? Are they going to see them once a month? Are they going to see them once every 2 weeks? This is the time to think about this based on the data that you are collecting. And of course, here's what the products really do and how they really impact what you're going to put in the funnel. You are going to want to think about the conversion rate you're getting, what you're going to have to produce, and how you're going to get to your $100 a year number with that particular customer. Now, the key to understanding these tests and these processes is they're all going to be going on in the background. They're not going to be your primary responsibility, but they do need to be running and they do need to be systematized. And so here's the question. Right now, do you have the tools first to survey your buyers and prospects so that when people buy from you, are you getting and collecting information from them both before the sale, during the sale, and after the sale that will tell you exactly what they want and what they're thinking? Also, are you tracking their activity? So do you have systems in place where you can watch individual buyers, both at the collective level and at the individual level, to see what they're doing? What are they responding to? Are you doing anything that makes them want to buy? You have to be tracking the activity, and you have to have the tools in place in order to do this. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. And now you can head over to the exercise for session 5. Hello and welcome to session 6. Now in this video, we're going to be talking about addressing a pressing problem in product form. Now, of course, you should have already discovered your topic area by this point, and you should be looking at or pretty certain on what your niche or sub-niche is going to be, or at least where you're going to start testing. Now, what we're going to do in this video is we're just going to talk about how you're going to take that one pressing problem inside of a niche and to address it in product form. And the first thing you really want to do is to decide how you best communicate your ideas. How do you best get your point across when you were talking about how to solve a particular problem? In other words, are you best audibly? Can you help people understand exactly what to do? Can you paint pictures with your words when you speak audibly? This is going to be important as you create products, because in some cases you might create video, but you might want to create the kind of video that still serves someone who's going to be listening to you by audio. Do you best communicate visually? Are you someone that really needs to be able to demonstrate or to show your screen or to be able to show people what's happening and to talk them through based on what they're seeing on their screen? If that's the case, then you're going to want to look at communicating by video. Are you a written communicator? Maybe you communicate best by writing out the steps and walking people through exactly what they need to do. If that's the case, then you're going to want to create PDFs. You're going to want to create guides, and you want to create workbooks, things that people can actually read in order to get the idea of what it is that they need to do. And this is an important aspect to the creation process. Do your ideas flow scripted or unscripted? So can you talk between points? Can you speak extemporaneously so that you can write an outline and that you can deliver the content to people based on the thoughts that come to your mind, or do you have to write it all out? Think about that before you start the process of creation. Now, here is an important point to think about. Do you personally know the answer to the pressing problem? Is this a case where you have the experience and you have the knowledge that you can help people with the problem based on what you are able to talk about from your own experience, your own education, your own intuition? If that's not the case, we're going to want to start thinking about how we can address the problem if we don't personally know the answer. Well, one of the things that we can do is to find an expert to interview that will help us walk through the process from an expert perspective. Maybe there are books that we can read, synthesize, and then put the information in a form that people are going to be able to get. In other words, we're going to actually do research in order to find the actual answer and deliver it to our customers. Maybe there is a process that we know that others don't know that solves the pressing problem. If that's the case, we're going to want to put that solution into our product. Do we or someone else have results overcoming the problem? This is going to be important in terms of being able to establish credibility, not only for the sale, but also the authoritative nature of our content matters if we can definitely say that someone has been able to take the steps we're recommending and they've been able to overcome the problem. Now, the most important aspect of this is to have true and verifiable results. We want to give people a solid foundation, and we want to make sure that when we propose a solution that we know it's actually going to work. It's always best if the solution is ours. It's something that we've experienced. If we find someone else's results that we can actually talk through, that's okay. That's not as good as if it's ours. And then if we have no other alternatives, we can actually present a case study where we actually get someone else's results and tell people about something that we've seen work, but we've actually had to read about it. We've actually had to observe it. Now let's talk about an example of how to address the problem within a niche and within a sub-niche. So let's take the niche of internet marketing or making money online. Maybe then we will then look at the sub-niche of Kindle writers. And then we're going to talk about a particular topic. In other words, nonfiction. So we're niching this down even further. So what's the pressing problem? Well, how can a nonfiction Kindle writer find new book buyers? And so what are we going to do in order to present the answers? Well, maybe we might talk about the new book aggregators. Maybe we might talk about virtual book tours. Maybe we might talk about Facebook ads. Maybe we might talk about Amazon ads. So there are lots of ways for us to be able to approach this problem and to be able to deliver a solution and to be able to talk through helping people inside of their niche with these problems. And in this case, we could probably talk about all of them, but we do want to then start talking about them one at a time. So our answer we would start with is finding new buyers for our nonfiction book with Facebook ads. And that might not be the title, but that would be the subject. This is how we want to get specific about a niche, specific about an idea, specific about a problem that we know people are having, and then designing out the solution based on whether we go and get the information from someone else or we talk about it from our own perspective. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. And now head over to the exercise in session number 6. Welcome to session number 7. Now in this video, we are now going to start asking questions of our audience, of the customers that we're getting, so that we can get more information on the market and what it is that we should be doing. We need real information in order to start making adjustments to what we're actually going to deliver and it's now time to take a day, or maybe a little less, of intense study of the customer base that we are going to be approaching. Our goal in this period of time is to get real information about the market. We're going to be doing lots of visual imaging and using lots of analogies as we start to figure out what the audience is actually saying and what it is that they're actually doing. So we want to try to find out who is actually buying the products. Who are we actually talking to? Who is going to be in our marketplace? We want to try to know why they have an interest in our niche. Why are they coming to look for the solutions that they're looking for? What is it that they're actually after? For example, in information marketing, we want to know if they are male or female. We want to know if they are doing information marketing full-time or part-time. We want to know their approximate age. All of these things will color how we approach the market and how we structure what it is we're going to do. And so we can basically start doing this through audience surveys. Now, of course, we can attract people in from Facebook using paid advertising. We can attract people from YouTube using paid advertising. We can attract people through our videos and attract them to our surveys. We can attract them from online forums. We can attract them from Facebook groups. We can attract them from our joint ventures when we launch products with other people. We can actually be on someone's download page. In other words, we can give people the opportunity to get something from us that they want. In exchange, they're going to give us some information about their preferences. We can attract them through summits and interviews. We can attract them through PLR product creation launches. And now this is something that you'll want to note about a survey. Statistics are that you will get better information if you do not offer an incentive. So in other words, you don't want to promise that someone's going to get something in order to get your survey done. That person will likely then answer the least number of questions and they'll rush through the survey in order to get what you answer. You want to make sure that the people who are taking the survey are people who actually want to answer the questions. And what are we doing with this survey? Well, we are actually narrowing down the niche that we're in. It's basically a brief time to do a little research, and it shouldn't take days or weeks or months. We are really setting up a system to start collecting information every single day so that when we create products, when we attract people into our marketing funnel, when we get people to opt in, we want people to have to come through our survey. We want to use our autoresponders to drive traffic to the survey. So whether or not we have prospects or whether or not we have customers, we want people to answer our survey. We want to gather the data and to continue to collect it. In some cases, you may want to launch your survey before someone actually opts in. This will give you a certain kind of result, as will launching your survey after someone opts in. The important thing is that our survey data collection is going to go on in the background while we create customers, while we create prospects. We want to continue to use this information to make adjustments to what it is that we are offering. And finally, to execute these, we want to make sure that our tracking systems are tracking our activity on social networks as well as search. So again, so we can tell not only what the traffic is doing, where it's coming from, and getting a sense for why it's coming to our survey and what it is that we are learning from them, and how we can translate that into what it is that we are offering. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. And now, head over to the exercise in session number 7. Welcome to session 8. Now in this video, we are going to start to get into the calculations or the numbers of the 1000 True Fans method as it applies to information marketing. And we're going to start by working through what's called the base rate. Now, you might have figured out that if you calculate the $9 per customer per month, that will come out to about $108,000. Now, the question is going to be, whether or not that $108,000 would really be a considerable living for you. Would that put you in a position to do everything that you needed to do in order to be an information marketer? And when you come to a situation like this, you want to be real about the number. Of course, we know that you'd like to make $1 million in a calendar year, but it's time to really get serious about the numbers. What would it take to put you on the fast track for success in your business? Let's say that you wanted to travel and pay for every internet marketing conference that you really wanted to go to. What would you have to make? What would that base rate need to be if you were to add it to your already in place living expenses? Now, this really needs to be a finite number because you are going to focus in on your goals with this number, and this base rate is the beginning of that calculation. You might ask the question, why? You are going to need to have a vision beyond this base number and grow. And that's why establishing what the base rate's going to be is going to be important. This is going to be your starting point. This is going to be your metric. And you're going to start at this point. You're going to measure your growth from this number as you go forward. So when you start to consider what your base rate is, what is your $108,000? What is the right living for you as an information marketer? Now, here's what's important about this number. This number needs to be what you'll need in order to be free to pursue the business. And that means then that this might need to be the number that you need to have in order to be free from a particular job. It might need to be the number you need to have in order to be free from a particular residence or a particular geographic area. Calculate that into your base rate. This number should be individual and real to you. So think about things like children or pensions or elder care or any other aspect of your life that might cause that number to be different. And of course, you want to give yourself a little wiggle room in the number. Now, don't extend it to 3 or 4 times as much, but make sure that it's individual to you and your life and that it makes sense so that you can grow your information marketing business. So determine what your base rate is. Now, the next calculation that you want to go through is called the base time number. Now, we base this on how much we really want to work every year in order to attain that base rate. So in other words, if we have to work for a base rate of $108,000, how much do we want to work on average every single day? How much time do we want to put in every single day? We do not want to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in order to attain the $108,000. So what do we want our day to look like? How much time are we shooting for in terms of putting in order to earn that income? And it is important to be clear on this. Just as clear as we are on the number, we want to be just as clear on how much time we want to spend in order to earn it. This will determine how we go about attaining the 1,000 true fans. Now, how often do we want to offer direct contact with our fans? That's going to determine our base time. In other words, do we want to go someplace live? Do we want to make sure that we're giving them personal attention? Determine that at this point. Now, as a side note, it's very often that right now at this point that no one else in your niche is probably doing this exercise, determining how much direct contact they're going to have. This is going to put you in an advantage in and of itself. And that's just a side note. Now, this is not going to be an exact calculation, the base time, but this is going to set limits on how you behave once you actually hit your base rate. You want to determine how much time you're spending on a daily basis because, again, this is important. It's a quality of life issue, but it's also a growth issue. Now, the last calculation we want to determine is called the base sale. Now, on average, what is the average value of every sale that you make or that you're going to be making? Think carefully about what you are going to be offering. What kind of product are you going to be selling? And what the market actually bears for it. So in this case, you would not count what you're putting in your funnel. Again, we're determining front-end sales. We're determining when someone buys one product from you, one customer buys one product. We want to determine what is the average value of every sale. And this should be a finite number. So if you are an author, a Kindle book author, then you have an idea of how much you're going to make from every sale of your Kindle book. If you are a digital product creator, you have an idea of what that product is going to cost every time you make a sale to a new customer. If you create and sell software, you have an idea of what that software sale is going to be per customer. Maybe you want to factor in things like affiliate commissions, but you do want to have an idea of what you are going to be getting every time you make a sale. Now, do research in the market if you don't know this number right off the bat. Determine what is the average you can expect for a Kindle sale? What is the average you can expect for a digital product sale? Whatever it is that you're selling, what can you expect to make for one sale in your market, in your niche? And so the question is, products like yours, the ones that you excel in offering, what do they cost? What does the author, what does the product creator actually get? Then calculate this number. And so we're now going to take these numbers and we're going to turn this into some real information. And now what we're going to do is we're going to calculate the base fan sales number. So now that we have our base sale number and we have the base rate, we're now going to do a calculation. We're going to take our base rate, our $108,000, and divide that by the base sale, or that average sales number that we know based on the product that we sell. And then we're going to come up with what's called the base fan sales number. Basically, what we're going to have now is we're going to have an idea of how many times we're going to need to make the base sale, or how many fans we're going to need in order to buy that base product. This is going to be a finite number that we can then focus on. Now, we're going to have an annual number when we do this. So let's say that you have $108,000 and you have your base sale number, and you're going to come up with a number every year of sales that you're going to need to have from fans. Now, for now, what you want to do with that annual number is you want to take that and break it down. You want to break that down into a monthly base fan sales number. You want to break that down into a weekly base fan sales number. And you want to break it down into a daily base fan sales number. And what this is going to do is this is going to give us context for our business and what we are trying to accomplish. Once you have these numbers in place, you will then be able to focus on exactly how you want to manage your information marketing business. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. And now head over to the exercise in session number 8. Welcome to session 9. In this video, we're going to be discussing the next number, which is the conversion factor to acquire your 1,000 true fans. Now, we want to determine what it's going to cost us in real dollars to acquire fans. But before we can calculate that, we're going to need to know a few things. First, we're going to need to make sure we understand the sales conversion rates for products like ours, or our particular sales conversion rate on average. Now, if we were to sell by email direct to the people who are going to be buying our product, we will be able to determine how well our pages tend to convert. Whether or not we had a copywriter to write it, or whether or not we did it ourselves, we would be able to figure out in general how well we can expect a product like ours to perform on average throughout the year. If they all came to our page, what is the average expected conversion rate? And we should be able to determine that. That should be a definite number. And we don't have a number like that, we can go and do research on affiliate platforms like JVZoo or Warrior Plus, where the information is public. And we can find out how much we can expect a page to convert for products that are going to be like ours, in the niche that's like ours, or in the product range that's like ours. We should be able to determine what a well-written page will do, or how it will perform when a product like ours is for sale. So then once you have that number, then that's going to factor into this in a different way. We will then know our base conversion factor. We then have to back into how many sales we're going to need in order to find our true fans. For example, at an 8% conversion rate, how many visitors would we need to get to our page in order to make our annual sales number? We would need to know how many people we would have to bring to a page like ours in order to get to our number based on the conversion rate. So we'll be able to determine this number on an annual basis. Once again, we're going to go through the same calculation on a monthly basis. We'll need to know how many people we're going to need to bring to our page in order to make our actual monthly sales number to get to our base rate. We will come up with a weekly number to determine how many people we need to bring to our page in order to determine how to get to our base rate. We can then even do this on a daily basis. We'll determine a daily number. What we will then understand then is how many visitors on average we're going to need to our page in order to make our base rate. We can then start to factor in if we're going to purchase traffic, if we're going to purchase Facebook ads, if you're going to purchase YouTube ads. We can start to determine how much it's going to cost in order for us to get to the number where we want to get. We can start to then structure the cost of our actual business. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. And now you can head over to the exercise in session number 9. Welcome to session 10. We are now in the goal setting phase, and we're going to go through our numbers once again just to make sure that we understand the right perspective. Now, if you recall, we set a base rate, and that's the number that we determined that we're going to need annually in order to manage our business as well as to generate living expenses. And of course, that will be, in this case, the $108,000 that Kevin Kelly has laid out in 1,000 True Fans, plus whatever else we need to add to that number to make it personal to us. Again, in our base rate, we remember the fact that we must be able to develop personally. One of the factors in being able to generate that level of income from a creative profession means that you must be in constant development. You must be in constant state of moving forward and constant state of bringing to your fans and your customers the cutting edge. That will require that you would be developing personally, which has a cost associated with it. So you will want to make sure that that is factored into your base rate. We talked about the base time. Now, this doesn't necessarily go into a direct calculation, but it is important to determine when you get to your base rate, you want to know how much time you want to spend generating the income that you have made a priority. Now, let's get to goal setting for the base fan number. So for our $10 product and a base rate of $108,000, that would mean that on average we would need 10,800 sales per year in order to make that base rate. We would need an average of 900 sales per month, 208 sales per week, and 30 sales per day of our $10 product. So then we come to our conversion factor, and we know that products like ours that sold for $10 convert at 8% over their lifetime. We've done our research, we have our experience, we have a good idea that if we do what is necessary, if we have a well-converting page, we can expect that we will be able to generate 8% conversions over time. We then come to a converted fan number. If our page converts at 8%, our base fan sales number over our conversion factor is our converted fan number. So then we determine how many buyers we are going to need in order to get to that base fan sales number. So to get to 10,800 annual $10 sales, we are going to need 135,000 visitors to our pages. That's if our page is converting at 8%. We then break it down accordingly. We're going to need, in order to get to 900 monthly $10 sales, we're going to need 11,200 visitors to get to our sales pages. Again, for the weekly number, we are going to need 2,600 visitors to come to our sales page on a weekly basis. If we are going to be looking to generate that income on a daily basis, we are going to want to make sure that at least 375 visitors get to our pages on a daily basis. And again, these are average, but they are benchmarks. They allow us to quantify what it is that we are trying to do. We can now build our brand now that we know what we need to sell and how we're going to do it. We should now know what we're trying to accomplish on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. We should also know how fast we're going to get there. We also have a time factor to evaluate how successful we are going to be. And we now have a baseline income in order to adjust. We now know what we need to do in terms of generating traffic. And what we generally are going to need in order to make this a reality is we're going to need a converting sales page on a regular basis. We're going to need a profitable offer on a regular basis. And we're going to need a consistent source of targeted traffic. But now we have an informed method of being able to determine whether or not any of these three factors are actually working to get us to our goal. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. And now you can head over to the exercise in session 10. Hello and welcome to session 11. In session 11, we're going to be talking about exponential marketing. Now, because 1,000 True Fans was basically an academic theory by Kevin Kelly, there were advantages that information marketers have that were not taken into account in that article. Mainly that if you were skilled in structuring your sales and marketing systems for information, you can cut short some of the required numbers to make your goal. Now, the concept of exponential marketing has been part of the sales process as long as there have been sales. However, it was captured eloquently by Jay Abraham and Richard Johnson. In their hidden marketing asset system, they discuss ways to generate more profit from your existing customers. What this means to the theory is that just because someone spends $100 with us doesn't mean that's all they want to spend. And it's quite likely that they'll spend more of their disposable income with us if we provide offers that go with the flow of their lives. So when we execute systems like this, your profit can grow exponentially without you having to acquire any additional fans or customers. Now, there are two primary ways to grow your profit without having to increase the number of fans that you actually have to attain. First, we can encourage our fans to come back to buy from us more often. And there are a lot of ways to do this, but they're always going to fall into two categories. You can offer a premium or bonus, that's providing additional value for the same price. Or we can offer a discount, which is the same or similar value for a reduced price. All this assumes that we have a reliable way of telling fans that we have a special reason for them to come back to our website. I'm going to talk about this in the list building session, but for now, you want to think about this. We need to have a regular, established way of communicating with our fans. Now, the second way, we can encourage fans to spend more with us at each individual purchase. Now, this is powerful because it leverages any case where you even increase the number of fans you attain, as well as how often they make purchases from you. Now, this means you need to have systems in place to give them related purchases to make that increase the value of what they're buying. So how do we put these additional offers together? Now, there are some questions we can ask in order to help us to figure out what that is. What can we provide that would cause fans to enjoy their purchase more? What could we provide that would cause our fans to get rid of their pain or accomplish their goals faster? What could we provide that would cause fans to enjoy more of what they've already purchased? Now, sales and marketing experts call this upselling. And what we're attempting to do is to give the person the opportunity to spend more to get more value from us. Now, ideally, the time to make the offer to them is when we know they've committed to the purchase. You may have seen offers to check off a box on an order form that allows you to spend a little more to get an additional product or service, and this is called the one-click upsell process. We may have also seen offers that appear once we've already made the payment for the first item. This is typically called a one-time offer. Now finally, we're going to end with this discussion on lifetime customer value. Now, in addition to developing purchases for the buyer to make at the point of sales, marketers should consider the growth and development of the buyer. In other words, what are they going to need to purchase at a later time? What should they want to purchase at a later time? The buyer should always be aspiring to a higher price purchase based on what we show them. We should always be giving them something to look forward to and something to aspire to get. Now, this is actually called the horizontal sales funnel, and we'll discuss later when we talk about product line. But basically, one of the ways that we increase the customer's value to our creative business is to give them a series of things that they can and should be looking forward to purchase from us based on their own personal development. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. And now head over to the exercise in session 11. Welcome to session 12, and in this video we're going to be talking about list building for your true customers. Now, one of the factors that's assumed in 1000 True Fans is that you have a reliable channel to inform, educate, and market to your fans. Now, the proven channel for this to occur is going to be email. Email is still considered to be a very personal and intimate form of communication. And creative marketers must be able to establish a relationship with their fans through this medium in order to make the 1000 True Fans formula work. Now, there are three parts to the email list building equation. There's prospect communication, customer communication, and relationship communication. Let's talk about prospect communication. Now, to attain the email of a potential fan, creative marketers must go through the process of getting them to sign up for emails. This process is called opting in, and it's a way of getting legal permission to send commercial emails to them. Now, this typically takes place on a special kind of website called a squeeze or landing page, where the only choice a visitor can make is to opt in or leave the site. Now, this kind of communication is going to be for those people that are curious about your work and whether it's going to be for them. Now, this is going to require you to have a reliable, trusted system for sending emails called an autoresponder. And although there are several at differing price levels, new marketers tend to start out with sites and services such as Aweber, GetResponse, and Constant Contact. Now, there are others, but these are some of the main providers that have been around for some time. These companies will allow you to store your email contacts as you collect them, as well as to send email to them on a regular basis. The autoresponder companies offer a specialized service for your email sending so that you're likely to have your fans actually see the email and would never have issues of spam. Now, when you're communicating with prospects, you want to be reasonably certain that they have not yet purchased from you. That means that you can be specific in your communication with them and take advantage of systems that the autoresponder company gives you to segment the list. As soon as a customer makes a purchase, they should be taken off the prospect list and placed on a customer list. And there are going to be times when you're going to have customers on both lists, but you'll still be more effective in your communication with them if you're focused on segmenting. Now let's talk about customer communication. Now, part of your product or service sales system should include the ability to integrate with your autoresponder company. This is so that every time there's a purchase, your customer can be placed on a segmented list. Without this, you won't be able to send targeted email communications, and you'd be constrained to communicate with all of your customers this very same way. Having customers added to your autoresponder immediately upon purchase means that they can automatically be removed from the prospect list. This is going to give you, as a marketer, the flexibility to communicate with customers in a different way than you would prospects. Now, every time you collect a customer's email at the time of purchase, you're creating a marketing strategy. You can begin to market to your customers' email list according to what level or product they've already purchased. You can also market to your customers based on when they made their product purchase. Now, this is going to play well when you choose to make an offer to customers knowing that they thought enough of your product and services to make a purchase in the first place. Now, lastly, we want to talk about relationship communication. Now, the only way to maintain a passionate fan base that's always looking forward to your next product through your email is to find personal connections. Your email shouldn't read like a big company to the person. It should read like a person-to-person communication. The trend in information marketing is for people to sell to people. Now, while you don't have to be visible, you must be present. And this involves establishing a regular form of communication which speaks to the interests of the fans. It involves testing new product and asking for direct feedback. It involves speaking the same language as your customer base. Now, some businesses choose to make sure that there's some form of standard new customer orientation with each new purchase. And this can be done very easily with follow-up or pre-written emails. However, the messages cannot and should not take the place of an email dialogue. The relationship email is a running conversation, and new product recommendations should be part of that conversation. Having a long-term fan base that purchases year after year requires that you be consistent in your communication. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. And now you can head over to the exercise in session 12. Welcome to session 13. In this video, we're going to be talking about doing joint ventures for 1,000 true fan attraction. Now, establishing a path for an individual to become a fan through regular conversation means you're constantly testing your offerings. That means you'll need to find low-cost ways to introduce new people to your offerings. Some will continue to make purchases, interact with your communication, and prove themselves to be true fans. Others, though, will prove themselves to be acquaintances that may not be as passionate about your work. So how do you constantly bring new people into your marketing funnel to test your offers to find out if they will learn to like you through the regular course of your marketing? You meet them through the email lists of other creative marketers, otherwise called joint ventures. Now, in some cases, this might come in the form of a collaborative project between you and another creative. In other cases, it may come through an affiliate endorsement that someone makes on your behalf to their email list. Typically, the unspoken arrangement is that you too will endorse their creative projects to your email list. Now, in both of these cases, your exposure to new people expands without a monetary investment. However, both affiliate and collaborative projects will take time. Now, let's talk about collaborative joint ventures. In the classic joint venture, at least two creative marketers will collaborate on a project and split revenues and/or profits in some way. While the revenue can be important in a case like this, what is most important is the fact that you're meeting new potential fans. And to do this successfully, you'll want to make sure that the system for logging sales and capturing information works, is automated, and will add new names to your autoresponder. This can be done on affiliate platforms such as JVZoo, Warrior Plus, and Zaxa. Let's now talk about affiliate joint ventures. In affiliate joint venture arrangements, you are generating a sale through the efforts of affiliate partners. They are actually doing the work of sourcing their email lists to find willing buyers of your product. Again, this entire process is automated when you use one of the affiliate platforms mentioned earlier. Now, the key to this process is not to look at all affiliates with the ability to generate sales. It is to find the kind of partners that are likely to bring people that will enjoy your work once they purchase. They are going to be worth the time it takes to put effort into the arrangement because they will make more than one purchase from you. A joint venture arrangement makes the most sense if you have a percentage of new buyers becoming your true fans. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. And now you can head over to the exercise for session 13. Welcome to session 14. We are now in this video going to be talking about building a value platform. When the 1,000 True Fans concept was developed, it had artists, and particularly musicians, in mind. And what Kevin Kelly supposed was that the artists would have to find ways to be giving to their fans outside of the purchases that the fans were making. And this giving always results in the raising of the value of the items that are even marketed and sold. So in the case of a musician, when the artist was doing concerts, when they were doing television appearances, all that did was raise the anticipation, raise the value of something when it was actually sold, in particular music. And so an artist could do that free concert, television appearance, internet video, or whatever the case was, and they would do it knowing that people would start to want their actual album that was coming out. Now, in Kelly's world, they would find a way to give to their fans and others some way to sample some of their best work. So in other words, it is a way for someone to get a taste of what it is they're actually going to receive when they actually make a purchase. And the closer the audience could get to the artist, the more of a connection they'd make with the fans, so increasing the likelihood of future purchases. Now, information creators can mimic this structure in their business by providing some kind of value that doesn't cost their fans to hear. This involves giving to the fans, as well as interested prospects and customers, some of what they are actually going to be paying for. And to do this may involve one of a couple of forms. It could be a blog, it could be a podcast, it could be a Kindle book, ebook. It could be some low dollar cost product. It could be video logs. It could be live video on one of the platforms like Facebook or Periscope. Now, the key is not the medium. So it's not so much which medium is best, whether or not blogging is better than podcasting or live video is better than video logging. So you wouldn't spend a lot of time thinking about Facebook Live versus Periscope, and you wouldn't think a long time about Blog Talk Radio versus GoToWebinar. You don't want to spend your time there. The key in building a value platform is consistency, cross-posting, and circulation. So let's talk about consistency. Basically, you are talking about something that happens on a regular basis where you are communicating and creating that taste for your fans. That could come in the form of a daily blog post or a weekly podcast, some kind of monthly training or quarterly book or ebook. Now, when it comes to cross-posting, that means taking that content and placing it other venues. So if you have a podcast, it goes in the same place that a blog post might go. It goes onto a video platform. It goes into an audio platform. Or in the case of a video, it is cross-posted. It's cross-posted as a blog post. It may be cross-posted as an audio file. It could be cross-posted as a transcribed article. In other words, we take the format, it's repurposed, and cross-posted in other venues, again, to get exposure to other people. And then there's circulation. And circulation is that regular system of sharing the cross-posts. So in other words, not only do we share on social media and other places the actual content, but we share also the cross-posting. And what this does is that multiplies the effect, opens up a number of doors so that people can find your content. And when you provide these ways to give, it should be your best effort. Now, you may be tempted to hold back because you feel like, well, if I give everything, then I don't really have anything left to sell. And if you're providing consistent contact, you'll never be in danger of giving away too much, strictly because of the time factor. There really is not enough time to give away everything that you have when you're being consistent and you are on the cutting edge and you are continually producing. What the giving does is it raises the anticipation of your paid projects and increases their value when they are released. Now, why is that? Because people want an in-depth exploration of what they've already experienced on your platform. Now, you might say, now, why is that? Well, because if people want the in-depth exploration of what they've already experienced on your platform, you want them to then take the next step and pay. And these are going to be people who are almost self-identifying as people who are going to become your fans. So what are the elements of good value platforms? They are serial in nature. So in other words, you have an episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, episode 4. They come on a regular basis. They're consistent in their time and place. And typically on the actual content, on the actual platform communication, they're non-promotional. So if you're inclined to do sales presentations and sales webinars, this is not the place for that. They can be mentioned after the content has been given, after you've done the teaching or the giving, but you don't want to make it into a promotional session. That will turn people away. Now, good value platform is going to be interactive. It invites feedback. It invites people to talk back and to write back in and to comment and to post. That feedback is always going to be answered. So this is something that, as someone who is really looking to find your 1,000 true fans, you want to answer all feedback. So this is another one of those cases where you want to make sure that you choose your platform wisely. You commit to your best work because you want to be commenting and interacting with people based on what you've given to be your best. And of course, now a good value platform is going to be easily accessible. That goes back to cross-posting. And they're going to be personal, and they should reflect your USP. You should always be taking a stand based on your USP, and they should reflect who you are, because that's going to be the easiest to maintain over time. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in another video. And now you can head over to the exercise for session 14. Hello and welcome to session 15. In conclusion, we're going to talk about your product line. Now, the 1,000 True Fans theory meets the real world as you begin to develop a product line that satisfies your fans. Of course, this means that you have to do more than making sure that you're going to earn more at a particular point in time or at the point of sale. It means that you are going to do more than multiplying the number of products at particular price points. What can you do to give your fans more premium access to what you already offer? What could or should it cost for you to provide your prospect with everything that they're looking for? Now, this means that your product line is going to increase in price, in value, and decrease in the number of fans that can actually access it. It could take the form of something like personal coaching or private group weekend sessions. It's really called a horizontal sales funnel, and it's part of giving your customer something to aspire to. But it's a way of creating a more enjoyable business. You're basically pricing services and products at a very high cost or a higher cost that only a few people are going to be able to get access to. You're working with customers that recognize the value in this and are willing to pay for it in increasing amounts. Now, to get someone to spend more money with you requires trust and communications. It should be evident that you are growing in the area that you're giving. So in other words, when someone is experiencing your content on a regular basis, it should be obvious to them that you are growing in the niche, you are growing in your knowledge, you are growing in your experience, and then it is worth it then to spend more money with you. It should be obvious that the value that you can give will really help them. But what's important to come to this point is without the other steps in this course in place, you'd find it difficult to get individuals to trust you enough to pay you more. You can shortcut the number of fans needed and the time it takes to attain them by having this horizontal funnel where you have more products going up at increasing rates in price. The one way to do this is taught by an information marketer that teaches creatives how to increase their income. Now, he suggests backing into the product line by creating the sales materials for the most expensive products first, then making it available for sale, then breaking that product up into pieces and charging less for them. The product line is then developed from the most expensive to the least expensive in a very logical way. Regardless, it's important to develop the extremely high price product if you're ever going to create enough value to entice your fans to buy it. But it's just as important to undertake the kind of activities that raise the real and perceived value from the success you add to the lives of real people and fans. And that is what you have learned to do throughout this entire course of finding, maintaining, and building your 1,000 true fan base. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I will see you in either another video or another course. And now you can head over to the exercise for session 15.